Hello, thank you so much for joining us. Anybody who's watching live, as well as for those who watch on YouTube. I am super excited to be joined today by Nerd Nest Raine Giorgio. Raine, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, so Raine, before we just get into kind of what fan fiction even is and what teachers need to know about it, can you just tell us a little bit about just you and what Nerd Nest is?
Yeah, sure. So Nerd Nest is a social blog site for fangirls. So fangirls are nerdy girls between the ages of 13 and 30, and they self-identify as nerdy. And they spend between 25 and 60 hours a week online consuming and creating fandom content. So fandom is basically nerd culture. And so when the content that they're creating are different fan works. So that's everything from videos and GIFs to fan fiction, which we're talking about today.
And so what would be an example of something that might be really familiar to teachers of middle school or high school students of the kind of fangirl fandom that some of their students might be engaging in today?
So anything from Star Wars and Star Trek to Doctor Who and Supernatural and Sherlock. Those are some of the really big ones. Harry Potter is still really big. Yeah, so things that you might think of when you think around Comic-Con.
Awesome. And so if I'm a teacher and I have some teenage girls who are just huge fans of Harry Potter, what does their kind of fandom look like? How are some of the ways that that can manifest itself when we start thinking about fan fiction?
So what's really interesting about fandom right now is that there are two different models. And so the first is curative fandom. And this is what you think of when you think of old school Geek Boys. This is about collection. It's about collecting fun
So
facts.
quick clarifying question. We have nerdy girls and geek boys.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. Just making sure I'm keeping up with the lingo.
Yeah. So they collect things. But about 10 years ago, in like 2005, 2006, a new model of fandom emerged, and it was transformative fandom. And women are distinctly responsible for this, particularly teenage women. And they basically what they do is they consume it, they synthesize it, and then they create new content. So this is what your students are basically doing. It's not enough for them to read Harry Potter and love Ron and Hermione. They have to paint a picture of Ron and Hermione ice skating together. It's not enough for them to watch the Sherlock BBC series or read the books. They have to fiction about it. That's basically what these girls are doing.
So I'm hearing you say that can really, this sort of fan fiction is almost a way that super fans are kind of reappropriating the original content and making it their own, and that depending on what their creative outlet is, that there's really no limit. That could be painting, it could be writing, it could be movie making, fashion graffiti. Sky's the limit.
Absolutely, exactly. But what's really cool about fan fiction, create the universe. And so what we see a lot in fan fiction, especially fan fiction with teenage girls, is that these young women are redefining the universe in terms of something that makes sense for them. So we find a lot of people who their identity may have been labeled as something other than what is mainstream canonical in the universe that they are enjoying watching for fandom. And so what they do is maybe they'll make characters gay instead of straight, or they'll make the characters teenagers instead of adults, or they'll change something about the characters to make them more relatable, and then they'll create this fan fiction. So not all fan fiction is necessarily exactly about the show or the movie or the book. A lot of it is universes.
Awesome. I love that so much. And tell me, even though it sounds like some of these young ladies' kind of entry point into this fan fiction world is coming from that sort of place of being an other and outsider, when you talk about the fictional universe, I almost also hear you saying that there's opportunities where these girls are connecting online to very real and social universes and really finding their tribes.
A fangirl will absolutely tell you that her community is online. She will have friends in real life, but a fangirl is absolutely partly her online presence. And it's funny because a lot of that isn't necessarily done to seek acclaim or to find praise online, although That's certainly a bonus. A lot of it is just simply wanting to create something and then finding people who share in what you've created. So it's very nobly motivated, and it's really interesting to see that.
You know, something that you kind of touch on there for me just it really strikes a nerve is as teachers, one of the things that we really want with our students in their creative output and publishing is this idea of seeking an authentic audience. And I almost feel like you're, opening up this whole, you're pulling back a curtain on this world and letting us know that actually for a lot of our students, they already have found an authentic audience and it's way bigger than we even imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just to give you an idea about some of the statistics on fan fiction. Fan fiction can range from 100 words to the longest fan fiction I've ever read was 365,000 words. So to give you some perspective, the average novel is around 70,000 words. So
it's like 5 books worth of fan fiction and from a single teenage author.
From a single teenage author, correct.
And so, I mean, so that sounds like there's a message there that teachers need to know about fan fiction. What's the message that teachers need to know here, Raine?
Yeah, the message is that your students are probably being very creative if they're fangirls. They're probably engaging in very high-level thought and things that are very well written, and they have this venue to explore and express themselves. And for the most part, fan fiction is very well written. There is some fan fiction that is not great, but for the most part, fan fiction that I've interacted with, it's very thoughtful and it's very well written because they're labors of love. And that is really important and meaningful to the people who create them. So I guess the message for fan fiction for teachers is that I have to say is that a lot of students don't feel that they're represented reading curriculum. So a student might read The Great Gatsby and think, yeah, well, that's great. But what if it was the Game of Thrones characters in The Great Gatsby? Or what if there was, what if Gatsby and Nick Carraway instead went on a different adventure? Like, what if Gatsby didn't die? Their minds are working in very creative ways, and they don't necessarily express that in the classroom, but there is a huge online community and presence of people who are doing very critical thinking and really exercising their minds just online and outside of school. So that's really interesting.
It's just awesome, Raine. Thank you so much for that. And for anybody who's just joined us live, we're with Raine Giorgio. She is the creator of Nerd Nest. You can check it out when the site relaunches very soon at mynerdnest.com. And you can certainly find them on social media. And Raine, for the teacher who says, okay, this sounds really awesome, but at the same time, there were a few things you mentioned there where, there's no real fences on their creativity here. And before I really open up the floodgates here to my classroom with this fan fiction, are there any sort of cautionary things that I need to be thinking about for my, depending on what my school's rules are, or just the fact that I'm dealing with a crowd that's under 18 years old?
Absolutely. Fan fiction websites, fortunately, are very well categorized. So the two main fan fiction websites, I'll argue 3, fanfiction.net, An Archive of Our Own, and Wattpad. And those 3 classify each story based on genre, based on fandom, but most importantly, based on rating. So you can rate them anywhere from basically movie ratings from G to R, and that makes fan fiction very accessible and very easy to use in the classroom, I believe. So it's easy to look through a fan fiction's ratings and then also to look through their tags. So some tags might list trigger warnings or things like that. So their fan fiction is very well categorized, very well labeled. So it should be easy to browse through, and it should be really easy to expose people to. And in addition, it's easy to send kids home to read and to write.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Raine, for taking the time to share your creative genius and understanding of this world with us teachers. Again, she is Raine Giorgio. You can find her on Twitter. You can find her when they relaunch at mynerdnest.com. My name's Noah Geisel at Senior G on the Twitter, and thanks so much for joining, everybody. Raine, have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You as well.